Okay, eat, sleep, revise, repeat. Once you've put your name on the exam, notice how, let's get a red pen, and here we go. Now I might go quite quick, but don't worry, you can pause it and stuff. Okay, so you'll notice this is the foundation tier. This was a real exam. Okay, you had 1 hour to do this. If you've just sat this as your mock, then good luck. Hopefully this will help. Okay, so on page 2 you'll always notice you've got a periodic table. Don't really need it on C1, so let's skip to the good bit. Right, this one is about putting a cross next to your answer. So the answer is ores. Why is the answer ores? Because rocks from which metals can be extracted are called ores. Okay, ka-ching, 1 mark. Next, aluminium, of course, used for making aircraft bodies because it's low density. Copper for water pipes because it's unreactive, so it doesn't give off chemicals into the water. And iron is used for making steel. Iron plus carbon, that's an alloy called steel. Okay, next, so explain why the iron nail. Just have a look at this one. There we go. Explain why the iron nail in test tube B rusted and the other iron nails did not. Okay, and that's because air, which we're talking about the oxygen from the air, and water are required for rust. And A and C didn't have both. Okay, so 1 mark, 1 mark, 2 marks. Scrap iron can be recycled. So let's explain an advantage of recycling. So it saves resources, so we're using less iron ore from nature, and it reduces the amount of scrap going to landfill. Okay, because that's not good. Okay, 2 marks. If you wanted to say something else, you could say it reduces environmental problems from mining as well. So we're not mining for new rocks, which means there's less environmental problems which are associated with that. The names of the 2 elements, okay, hydrogen and carbon. So if you write those in there, then that's 2 marks. Unbelievable, unbelievable. 2 marks for that. You're having a laugh. State what you would see. When orange bromine is shaken with propene. Well, because it's an alkene, it's a double bond. Alkane stays the same, so alkene, the colour disappears. Okay, so there is a reaction. Fantastic, 1 mark. Okay, propene can be made into a polymer, so obviously if you polymerise propene, it's polypropene. Next is describe what is meant by the term polymer. Okay, so describe what is meant by the term polymer. It's a large molecule, 1 mark, made from small molecules, which are called monomers. So mono meaning 1, and poly, the Greek word for many. So many monomers make polymers. 2 marks. Easy, come on. Many items made from polymers have a symbol like this. This symbol shows that the polymer can be recycled. Explain why it's an advantage to recycle polymers. Right, well, like earlier, recycling polymers. Okay, so less landfill, and so less going to landfill, which is really good. So we're not just chucking it away into the earth, and it saves resources. So this time, crude oil. That's what plastics, i.e. polymers, are made from. So 2 marks for that. And that's the end of question 2. So we move on to question 3. Question 3. Carbonates. Okay, a sedimentary rock. I can see that there's layers in this rock, and that's why we know it's a sedimentary rock. The layers were laid down, the sediments were laid down at the bottom of the sea, etc. Limestone is a sedimentary rock. Limestone is mainly calcium carbonate. We're looking for the symbol. We know it's calcium, carbon, and 3 oxygens. Okay, 5 atoms in total there. Next, another rock which is mainly calcium carbonate has to be chalk. Okay, so calcium carbonate is chalk as well as marble, and of course limestone. All of those have the same formula, calcium carbonate, CaCO3. When metal carbonates are heated, some of them decompose and they give off carbon dioxide. Right, this question was about how do we know there's a chemical reaction taking place, and we know there's a colour change. So the powder turns black that means there's a colour change, 1 mark. We're looking for a second mark. Now it gives off carbon dioxide, it's told us that in the question. So it gives off carbon dioxide, which means there's a chemical reaction, something new is being made. So we continue with question 3. And this is the last bit of question 3. Information from the table to explain which carbonate is easiest to decompose. So the reason is that it gives off carbon dioxide the quickest, fastest, okay, in the quickest time, in the least time. And the one that did that, if you look back at the table, just looking back at the table here, is copper carbonate. Okay, copper carbonate. Now, describe an experiment which copper carbonate is heated and the gas evolved is tested to show that the gas is carbon dioxide. Okay, so if you say that you're going to heat the copper carbonate in a boiling tube, you'll get away with test tube there, but we use a boiling tube. That's 1 mark, okay? And we pass the gas through a delivery tube, okay? 2 marks. We're looking for a third mark, and we bubble the gas through lime water, okay? So that'll be your third mark. If you forgot this mark or this mark, then you might have said that the lime water turns milky, which would get you the mark as well. So a couple of ways to get 3 marks there, okay? We continue with a blank page, easiest question, and then we move on to question 4. Okay, the atmosphere, a couple of pie charts, lovely. Complete this sentence. Gas X is, let's have a look at gas X, there it is. It's okay, so there's oxygen, 21%, this one, 78%, and other gases there. We know this one is, of course, nitrogen, don't we, in today's atmosphere. So, state what produced the gases in the Earth's early atmosphere. Okay, volcanoes. Easy, volcanoes. Okay, there we go, you don't need a picture, but that's my picture. Right, still with question 4, and it's still about the atmosphere then. How carbon dioxide from the atmosphere becomes calcium carbonate in rocks. Oh gosh, okay. So carbon dioxide is dissolved into the oceans first. Okay, so I'll get you 1 mark. Okay, and there in the oceans it's used to make the shells or skeletons of sea creatures, and eventually those creatures fall to the bottom as sediment and layers, and that turns to limestone, calcium carbonate. So there's your 2 marks. Okay. Next, when primitive plants appeared on the Earth, the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere changed. Okay, so obviously the amount of oxygen went up. So primitive plants, they photosynthesize, PTS. Okay, which means they give out oxygen, which is 1 mark. And it's also because they take in carbon dioxide, which means so when they photosynthesize, they absorb carbon dioxide, which means the carbon dioxide will go down, meaning the oxygen goes up. So those 2 things there. Okay, I think that could be just the start of question 4, because question 4 is 11 marks altogether. Right, here's a diagram. Now, this is where the candle is a light. This diagram isn't quite right, because just there or there, they should show you that water is able, pen's run out of ink, there you go, that water is able to actually get in there. So that diagram's not quite right. But what happens is, you can just put it up to there, explain how the water level inside the jar at the end of the experiment has risen. So, so water replaces the oxygen which is used by the candle for burning. Okay, so the candle burns using up oxygen. That should be 1 mark, and it means it goes up to 21% or 1/5, and that's what happens. So saying the water replaces the oxygen, okay, which the candle is burning, so that's 1 mark. 2 marks. And if you know how much it goes up by, a fifth or 21% roughly, that's the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. Right, word equation. Now, wax contains this chemical, right, so this chemical, octadecane, and it burns in air. Well, it doesn't burn with all the air. There's something in the air called oxygen that it burns with, and it forms, so that's your arrow there, so it forms carbon dioxide, and we all know the rest of it, water. Okay, so there's your equation for 2 marks. 1 mark for the reactants, 1 mark for the products. There you go. Right, ka-ching. So 11 marks for question 4. How many did you get? Let's have a look at question 5. Give the name of an element that burns in oxygen to form sulfur dioxide. Well, you need sulfur and oxygen to make sulfur dioxide, okay? So, sulfur. And that's 1 mark. State 2 problems caused by acid rain. Okay, so it erodes buildings, and then you could put it kills fish for a 2nd mark. Okay, we'll move on from that. I'll tell you what else you could have had. Just let me remember. You could have had that it damages plants, damages statues, damages buildings, that sort of thing as well. Okay, so maximum 2 marks. Okay, so we continue with question 5, and nearly there now. Just one more question after this. Right, so this shows, as the years go by, up to today, 2010, 2014, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has gone up as well. Okay, so explain why the data may or may not provide evidence for this idea. The idea that the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has caused this change in temperature. So, the amount of carbon dioxide going up, we're saying there's been a change up by about 0.5 degrees C. So, has carbon dioxide caused it? Well, what link have we got? So, well, it could explain it because carbon dioxide has increased, so has the temperature. And believe it or not, that will get you 2 marks. That's saying how it could have happened. Okay, I'll leave it at that. That will get you 2 marks. Okay, this one we're saying they're renewable because we've got to complete the sentence. And biofuels are made from plants. Biofuels made from plants can be used instead of fossil fuels. One advantage of using them is that they're renewable. So fossil fuels take millions of years to make, okay? That's why we can't renew them. It's not easy. Okay, 6 mark question. This is worth 10% of your papers. So, we're looking at a data table. We're looking at some fuels, A, B, C, D, how easy they are to ignite, how much smoke they make, and actually how effective they are, so, or how efficient they are, okay? So, this one here is obviously the most efficient. It raises the temperature by, and remember we're making a fair test, so we're heating 100 grams of water, and we must be burning the same amount of fuel to determine the heat energy. So, now we must be burning the same amount of fuel, obviously, right? So this one raises it by the most. That's the most efficient. To get 6 marks on this, what we want to do is just compare them, because it just asks us for the advantages and disadvantages of each fuel, okay? And which one of the 4 would be the best for domestic use. So here we go. Here's a 6 mark question, 6 mark answer. Okay, so I would say that A and B are the easiest to light. Easiest to light. Okay, that'll get me 1 mark. And give off no smoke. So again, I'm looking at advantages. That's another mark. But they give the least temperature rise. So out of the 4 of them, but give the least temperature rise. Okay, so that's your 3rd mark there. D gives the best temperature rise. We've said that. D gives the best temperature rise. Okay, it's another mark. But we know that it's let's just say more difficult to light and more smoky. Smoky with an E? Ooh, go on, we'll put yes, it must be, looks right. Okay, so again, a couple of marks there, that's 6 marks for that one. So, question 5, out of 12, how many did you get? Let's have a look at question 6. And question 6 is a bit more chemistry. Surprise, surprise, this one's about acids, so complete the sentence. A reason why hydrochloric acid is produced in the stomach. Okay, so it's going to break down food, isn't it? Okay, won't be to neutralise acids, it's because it's already an acid, isn't it? You need an alkali to neutralise an acid. Write the word equation for this reaction. So, indigestion tablets, hydrochloric acid, so calcium carbonate, that's the indigestion tablet, okay. That reacts with the acid, so let's put, now it says word equation, make sure you write a word equation, don't try and put the symbols. So calcium carbonate, and it says hydrochloric acid there, hydrochloric acid, and that forms, or that makes, calcium chloride, water and carbon dioxide. Gosh, calcium chloride and water and carbon dioxide. Okay, right, so there you go. So the equation was in the question, wasn't it? Okay, so all you've got to do is sort of rewrite the question for that one. And moving on with question 6. Okay, another 6 marker, so another 10% of your exam here. And this one shows electrolysis, okay? It's asking you to, now you're going to carry out the electrolysis of hydrochloric acid in the lab. Says you may add to the diagram to help you. Name the products formed. Okay, right, so it's asking us to explain how would you use this apparatus. Okay, so I'm going to use the diagram. I'm going to look at the diagram and I'm going to say, number 1, what I would do would be to add the acid to the container. Okay, I just put a little arrow there to show what I'm talking about. Number 2, I would apply a direct current to the electrodes. I'll put DC, direct current to the electrodes. Okay, and I'll just point to the carbon rods. They're the electrodes that we're going to use. Number 3, I would place test tubes over the electrodes. Okay, so I'm just going to show my little test tube there and there. Okay, so put a little arrow. Okay, so I would place test tubes over the electrodes to collect the gas. Okay, to collect the gas. And what gases would be formed? Well, I'm going to get 2 gases formed. So I'll put hydrogen. Okay. How do we know this? I'll put hydrogen there. It's going to be formed at 1 electrode. Not important in this question which electrode it is, but how do we know that? Where's the... I want to underline something. There we are. Hydrochloric acid, HCl, into its elements. There's only hydrogen and chlorine there. Okay, so hydrogen and chlorine there. Okay, now that will get you 6 marks. So we've got the gases that are going to be collected. So we've said add the acid to the container, test tubes to collect the gas. We've said what the 2 gases are, that's 4 marks. Apply direct current to the electrodes, you know where it's been applied. If you added a safety feature to that, so you're making chlorine gas, you want to ventilate the room, you're using acids, you want to use safety specs or gloves, then that's another possible mark there. But the 6 marks for what I've done there. Okay, right, and I think that is one more little bit. Okay, a student is given a test tube of oxygen and a test tube of hydrogen. Right, how do we know? Okay, so a lighted splint will give a squeaky pop if it is hydrogen. Okay, H2 is the formula for the molecule of hydrogen. O2 is a glowing splint will relight. We all know that. Okay, so will relight Okay, how many did you get out of 60? I'll give you your marks for your mock papers and your grade boundaries very soon. I've been Mr. Rankin. Eat, sleep, revise, repeat. And that was C1 Chemistry.